Impartial Interest says, hey, mate, I've got a 21-foot heavy fiberglass boat with about 8 inches of beam. I don't know what you mean about 8 inches of beam. You maybe an 8-foot beam, I'm guessing. The transom is rated to 200 horsepower, and the boat was made in the days when two-strokes were commonplace. I currently have a 2001 2.6-liter V6 Johnson, 175 horsepower, carbureted two-stroke on it. It goes well, and the outboard is light, 170 kilograms. I'm now considering repowering with a 4-stroke, but I don't know whether to go V6 or Inline-Four. Both Suzuki and Yamaha offer 4-cylinder and V6 in 200 horsepower. Which would be better? The V6 are obviously heavier and higher displacement and smoother, but the 4-cylinder are lighter and better on fuel. Thoughts? So my thoughts, this is a big discussion. A lot of people have this discussion. It's the old inline 4-cylinder versus a V6. That 150 to 200 horsepower range is kind of your issue of, like you're saying, the 170, it's a weight issue. To me, I look at it as weight. I think there's no replacement for displacement when you're moving weight, especially on a boat. That's why bigger boats, bigger cabin cruisers, big and stuff like that, they have diesels because you get displacement to move weight. Small cylinders and low displacement, high RPM when it comes to a boat, I don't think it equates. It doesn't equate the way you think it would equate when you look at like a car or something like that, because, with a car, you're fighting wind. You're not fighting drag and pushing weight through water. So weight is a massive factor. The heavier the boat, the bigger displacement. That's why you see these outboards, the 600 horsepower outboard, the V10s that Mercury make, the diesel outboards, is displacement, because the bigger boats, the heavier boats with the Seakeepers and all the other stuff that you guys put in the boats, like, they're heavier. You need more power to push them. And whenever I say power, think of displacement, because it's going to be better off with more displacement, not necessarily just horsepower. And also the whole, I think there's actually a comment about this. Udo Man says, why has a 150 horsepower two-stroke engine more power and 150 horsepower four-stroke engine? 150 horsepower or 150 horsepower after all. So it's based on your torque, your horsepower, your torque curve, and it isn't really horsepower versus horsepower, because a two-stroke has 2 strokes. 4 strokes has 4 strokes. It is a more efficient engine being a two-stroke, which means you get more power quicker. It takes less to spin up, and it's just straight up blasting out power. You've also got ratios as far as the gear cases, because you have what would you call it? It's a step down, but now the words, I've lost the word that I'm trying to come up with of your gear ratio. You are stepping down, I can't even think of the word. Like if your power head is spinning at 1,000 RPM and you've got a 2-to-1 gear ratio on your lower unit, your propeller is only going to be spinning at 500 RPM. So there's that difference there, the transfer of power. On a two-stroke, you can get a lot more quicker, and it's just, you're losing efficiency. What the flywheel is producing and what the propeller is producing is totally different. You might get 200 up here and 180 down here. So there is a loss in efficiency with the gearing, as well as the two-stroke versus four-stroke, because the four-stroke has 4 strokes. It takes 2 revolutions to create 1 power stroke, whereas the two-stroke just needs 1. So, two-stroke, 4-stroke, 1 revolution. So the whole deal is moving of the weight. And if you're going to go from a two-stroke that's creating instant power and 175 horsepower, it's lighter and it is more efficient. So it feels like it has more power, even though it might, the 150 versus the 150, you're talking about a 4-cylinder versus a 6-cylinder. So that's why you would say that the 150 has more power. It really technically, you can't say that it has more power. It's just how it performs based on application. It would be a better thing to say that the two-stroke, based on the application, replaced with a 4-stroke, with less cylinders is not going to perform the same as the two-stroke, because the V6 has more displacement and it's instant power. So it's going to hop up on plane better. It will have different performance aspects to it. Like the top end might be a little bit different, but it's definitely going to get on plane quicker and it's going to feel quicker. If you go from a 175 two-stroke that's, V6 to a 150, 175, 200 four-cylinder, your fuel economy is going to be, a little bit better, just because you're going from a two-stroke to a four-stroke. But depending on how you load that boat, especially an older, heavier 21-foot fiberglass boat, I would be wanting to put the V6 on there, because based on how you load the boat, if you put 4, 5, 6 people on there, which a 21-footer, you should probably be able to get 6 people on that boat comfortably. Depending on how heavy those people are and how much gear you put on that boat, the 4-cylinder 200, you're going to be running it at higher RPM than you are a V6, based on the performance of the boat, based on the speed, and then how the boat is performing in the water. It's going to be, you're going to require more from the 4-cylinder than you are from the 6-cylinder, if that makes sense, the way that I've just rambled through trying to explain the scenario here. So if it was me, I'd go the V6 200, because the 4-cylinder 200, even though it's going to perform similar to your 175, I think it will not perform as well as the 175, simply because it's got 4 cylinders. You're going to run higher RPM, and if you load your boat up, then you'll probably be putting more strain on the engine, because you're going to have to prop it to perform the way you want it to perform, and you're going to be loading that engine. So if you're running it with it fully loaded all the time, you're going to start having issues like carbon buildup and other things like that. So you're going to need to be running a lot more ring-free and other things to prolong the life of this engine, because you're trying to make, I guess the better way of explaining this is you're trying to take a small engine and make it do big engine things. You're trying to take a small truck and make it do a big truck things. Like you're taking, you're trying to take a Ranger and make it perform like an F-250. That's what you're basically trying to do. So if it was me, whenever I see this situation, I'm going more. Always go more. And, if you don't load your boat up, it's just you, it's a lighter boat, then you put a 175 4-cylinder, the 200 4-cylinder, you probably won't notice much of a difference, because you aren't fully loading that boat with the weight that's going to change the way it performs with that Inline-Four. If you don't load your boat up, it's just you, it's a lighter boat, then you put a 175 4-cylinder, the 200 4-cylinder, you probably won't notice much of a difference, because you aren't fully loading that boat with the weight that's going to change the way it performs with that Inline-Four. Juggle Matt says, can I ask your thoughts on the benefit of doing an annual engine flush with a product to clear calcium deposits like Ridlime? This is in addition to regular flushing with Salt Away. I'm running a Yamaha F60 with around 1,500 hours. Thanks. I don't know what thoughts you really want from me, because if you're already flushing with Salt Away, you got 1,500 hours on your F60, you're doing great. I don't know if you really need to do a Ridlime, because Ridlime is a really, really good product. That thing will clean. It's going to clean your engine. If you've got buildup and deposits in there, it's going to clean it out. So if you're already flushing with Salt Away on a regular basis, I don't know if you're going to necessarily need to do a Ridlime. Maybe every 3 years, you could put it on your 300-hour or 3-year services, but I don't know if you're really going to need that, though, based on what you're already doing. Now, if you're not running anything, say you don't flush your engine at all, and you just run it, say, once or twice a week, maybe a couple times a month, then maybe a Ridlime every year or every other year, that's going to do you some good. But Ridlime is a very, very good product. So it's it's almost like, are you doing damage the more you do it because of how good it is? I don't think you can do damage with it. It's not going to damage your metal. But if you have metal that is eating itself away, then red lime is going to clean everything off that metal. So any kind of buildup, salt buildup, blockages, it's going to eat that away. So if you do have a problem, it can expose issues, but I don't know if having a once a year is really going to be necessary for you. For someone else that doesn't flush, yeah, I could see that being a good routine. Unimpressed Aussie says, I accidentally idled my E-Tech 30 horsepower without water for about 30 seconds. Still pumps water. Should I be worried? Thanks. You're kind of like in that gray area. I mean, 30 seconds is long for not having any water to your impeller, but is it long enough to really damage your setup? Probably not. You're probably going to be fine. You may have worn the impeller down a little bit, but 30 seconds is, is it enough to burn the impeller up? No. Is it enough to break a blade off? Really, you're not going to. When you break a blade off, it's because the impeller's gotten brittle and it just snaps off. Heat is going to melt your rubber. So the issue with running it dry is the impeller gets hot based on the friction of running in a metal cup when it is dry. And, at idle, you're running, let's say idle is, let's say 600 RPM. That E-Tech, based on your exhaust, you might be a little oily, but that's a little lubrication for you. But as far as the heat factor goes, did it get hot enough to melt the rubber of the impeller and compromise it? I'm going to say probably not. Now, do you need to change your impeller on your regular service? Yes. I wouldn't worry about it. If you're pumping water, I don't think it's hot enough. Now, if you run, say, 5 minutes, all right, you're probably not going to pump any water because you melted that impeller. It ran long enough. If you look at a 30 horsepower engine at idle, let's say you're idling at 650 RPM, most likely you've got a 2-to-1 gear ratio. So that impeller, well, there's no gear ratio. There's no gear reduction there, which that's what I was thinking of earlier, gear reduction. So you're running that impeller spinning 650 times per minute. So is that enough time to heat up? You've got your exhaust going out the side there or out right behind it, which heats it up. Now, if you're pumping water, I'm going to say you're good. And then when it stops pumping water, then you start to think about it. But depending on where you're at on your service schedule, your impeller, you did put some strain on it, but hey there, sorry to take you away from the video, but real quick, did you know that on average a boat owner will spend between $1,000 and $5,000 a year just on servicing their engine? And you could actually pocket and save a lot of that money if you would just do the service yourself. It might seem like a daunting task, but I guarantee you virtually everyone can do it with our guidance and the Boaters program. This is just one skill that you could learn inside the program because we have hundreds of other videos teaching you all kinds of boating skills, as well as a weekly live stream where we have questions and answers with me, as well as a chat feature where you can send videos and pictures, ask all kinds of questions, or look for some advice or some guidance on a project that you're doing on your boat. You can join the program by hitting the first link in the description, clicking join, or visiting bornagainboating.com. Now back to the video.